right. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Hashtag Anxiety Podcast. We are here with season 2, and I'm so excited. We have an amazing guest with us today. I'm Cassie. LolaB is back with us.
Hi, everybody.
Before we get started, our usual disclaimer. Sometimes we use salty language, and neither of us are licensed professionals. We're just here talking about anxiety.
We're not clinical professionals, but Dr. Finley is. So the good news is, well, two things. First of all, I'm going to try hard to dial back on the salty language because I know Dr. Finley and she's awesome. And I don't want to, be swearing up a storm because she's all great and professional and such. And I highly doubt she'll drop anything that's scary. So I'm going to try and do the same. I'm thrilled to have Dr. Heather Finley here with us. Dr. Finley is a registered dietitian. She has a master's degree in sports psychology and a doctorate in clinical nutrition. I've known Dr. Finley for a while, and I'm a fan personally and professionally. She's an amazing human and a really great clinician and dietitian, and just a tremendous expert specifically in the gut and gut brain issues. And I'm thrilled to be able to ask her questions today. She's a big deal. Like, she has like 30,000 Instagram followers or something like that. It's a lot, Dr. Finley. It's a lot. So and I'm one of them. I follow her Instagram and try to mold my life a little differently when she posts cool stuff. So welcome, Dr. Finley. We're thrilled that you're with us.
Well, thanks for having me. And yeah, I never knew that I would have 30,000 people that wanted to hear about poop all day long, but here we are. So
let me tell you, when Cassie and I were talking about having you on the show, Cassie said, I have so many poop questions. She's cannot wait to talk about poop. So I think you're two birds of a feather.
I have an inside joke with my friends. Like, if you're on the inside, like, we're definitely talking about poop. And I struggled with constipation for a long time. So now I just call it magic.
Like, you got to go make magic.
Yeah.
Hey, it is magic.
Right?
You feel a lot better after you poop. So it's okay.
That is true. That is true. Well, let's start maybe from the beginning. I don't know if this is the beginning or not, but I would love for you to tell us about kind of how your journey brought you here, what got you started and interested in gut and gut brain and nutrition in general, and we'll go from there.
Okay. Well, keep a long story short, but I always tell people I was constipated my whole life. Like, I was born constipated. I mean, I've had so many conversations with my mom where she's like, I just feel terrible. Like, I had no idea. And really, I mean, how would she have an idea? Because I just thought it was normal because I always felt that way. So, but then I reached a point where I'm like, wait a second, no one else feels the way that I do. No one else is like, doesn't go to the bathroom for a whole week and is super bloated and uncomfortable. So there's got to be something going on. So selfishly, I kind of got into nutrition, one, because of my gut issues, but two, because I was a swimmer. And so I was very interested in what I could eat to swim as fast as possible. So both of my pursuits of nutrition were very selfish, but thankfully now I can use it to help other people. So went to college, swam, really wanted to learn, like, okay, what do I eat so I can like swim my fastest time? But also kind of had this like side goal of like, how do I not feel bloated all the time? Didn't actually realize how the two of those things went together. I was severely overtrained, undernourished, stressed, not sleeping enough, etc. And honestly graduated college and thought I had made a terrible mistake. I'm like, I still can't fix my own issues. I'm still really constipated. And how the heck am I supposed to help other people? I don't even know how to help myself. So that's the master's in sports psychology. I'm like, okay, maybe I need to like pivot a little bit. I still like had this huge passion for nutrition and helping people. And the psychology has always been very interesting to me, but found my way back to nutrition in the midst of all of that. When I had this light bulb moment, realizing that everything going on in my gut had everything, but also nothing to do with food. I had tried every elimination diet, everything that you could possibly think of for, quote unquote, bloat relief, and it didn't work. And so I had this light bulb moment realizing, okay, maybe it's other stuff. And that's kind of what led me down the pursuit of more of kind of the functional side of nutrition and medicine, and kind of blending the two worlds of this very extreme, like functional medicine approach to Western medicine that tells you like, it's okay if you only go to the bathroom once a week and just take more fiber and drink more water. And obviously like that wasn't working for me either. So that's when I went and got my doctorate in clinical nutrition, and really focused on kind of this whole mind body approach to gut health. And now I get to help other people that suffered the same way that I did. And I love it.
When you talked about you've always had constipation issues, even as a little kid, is that right? Even as a baby, I mean, you're probably serious about that, like through all of your childhood, even as a little kid.
Oh yeah, totally.
Wow.
Like I don't I don't remember much about like my little like
Sure.
childhood, but like as far as I can remember back, I remember feeling that way. And now like even talking to my family, my mom's like, I guess, yeah, you did have like stuff as a kid, but the doctor said it was fine, you know? So it's like everything was fine. There's nothing
Right.
wrong. So
Right.
yeah.
Wow. Obviously we're all about anxiety here at the #anxiety podcast. And, Cassie and I have that in common. It manifests in some ways similarly for us, in some ways really different. It's different for everybody. But, as I've looked at some research or looked at some articles and Googled more about, what's the gut have to do with anxiety and vice versa. Holy cow. It just says it's totally connected. It absolutely is connected. So will you tell us a little bit about what you know about that and how anxiety and issues in your brain and your gut are connected?
Yeah. And that's the case with me too. I mean, I was always an anxious kid. I was an anxious adult. Like I definitely struggle with that as well. And so there is a huge gut brain connection with anxiety. And I think it's something that we're still learning a lot about, but there's already a lot that we know, which is really cool because it provides this angle to be able to help people in ways that we didn't know. Simply put, the gut and the brain are connected through something called the vagus nerve. It's the largest cranial nerve that we have in our body, and it's a bidirectional pathway, meaning that the brain talks to the gut and the gut talks to the brain. And there are actually more messages going from your gut to your brain than there are from your brain to your gut, showing the strong connection between your gut bacteria and your gut composition to neurotransmitter production and mood. But conversely, your mood, your anxiety, your thoughts, etc., definitely affect your gut. So an example I can give is, we've all had a moment where we're super anxious or we're about to give a speech or whatever, and you are running to the bathroom. That is the gut brain connection. Your mind is like, I don't have time to digest the sandwich that I just ate. Get rid of it. I need to focus on being able to give this speech right now. And, so acute stress will do that, where you kind of have this running to the bathroom experience. Whereas chronic stress, like probably what I dealt with my whole life, from swimming, being undernourished, overtrained, we had practice at like 4:45 in the morning. So like, of course I wasn't sleeping enough, in high school, trying to do homework and everything else, like, hello. But, all the other stressors that we have in our body, this chronic stress actually slows the gut down. And there's a lot of variables there as well, but acute stress is going to speed the gut up, meaning more like diarrhea, loose stool type symptoms. Chronic stress, more on like the constipation end of things.
Got it. I guess I'm somewhere in the middle because I don't necessarily have constipation for the most part, but there's a whole thing about incomplete bowel movements. And, I hate to get deep into detail, but that is my life. That is my life. So I would imagine that my vagus nerve is, I don't know, it's not doing what it's supposed to, or it's doing too much. I don't know. You tell me.
Yeah. So gut motility is basically the movement and contraction of your gut muscles. So whenever I refer to gut motility, I'm referring to basically how efficient your gut is at getting rid of waste. One of the major ways your body, quote unquote, detoxes, not in the sense of like a juice cleanse, but like gets rid of waste, is through your stool. You also get rid of waste through your urine and your sweat. So if you are going to the bathroom every day, but it's not complete, like you feel always like you could go more, I would actually say you probably are more constipated than you think, because you have 25 feet of intestines. There's a lot of room for things to accumulate. Most of our clients find that, they'll go to like a chiropractor, or they for some reason have to have a CT scan, and they don't realize how constipated they are until the doctor pulls up this CT scan or this x-ray, and they're like, you are literally full of stool. Like
Wow. Yeah.
25 feet full of stool. So sometimes people are constipated without even realizing it, because they think, oh, I go to the bathroom every day, but they may not be like efficiently processing everything. So that could be the case. But as far as like your comment with the vagus nerve, your vagus nerve does help with gut motility. So when your vagus nerve is aggravated or innervated, it will help stimulate your gut to contract. Chronic stress will actually decrease the tone of your vagus nerve, making it weaker, but so will your gut bacteria. So your gut composition can affect that as well. So you can see how this can kind of get really complicated really quick. It's like,
right.
Is it the gut bacteria? Is it the stress? Is it stomach acid? Is it this? Is it that? Which is where kind of having this magnifying glass and looking at all the factors is really helpful.
Well, I would imagine that that's the key, right? That you're not just going to say to us, much as I wish you would, yeah, just take this probiotic and everything will be fine. Because that's not really how that goes, right? You're part of what you do. One of your specialty in your practice is to, as you said, dissect and get to the bottom of and figure out what's really driving it. And I would imagine that's a complicated and probably timely process. Like it takes some time, and people want it to be better tomorrow. I want it to be better tomorrow, but that's not accurate.
Yeah, which is, and I think it's why people spend so much money, so much time hopping from like one extreme to another, is because they want to feel better. Like, I get it. I used to do that because I wanted to feel better tomorrow, not in
Right.
6 months. But the reality is, if you can fix the underlying trigger, so maybe you do have slow gut motility, or maybe you do have low stomach acid, or maybe you do have imbalance of good and bad bacteria in your gut. If you're able to address those things, then you don't have to chronically go on a fad and off a fad and try all these crazy things. But it does take consistency and patience, but it's not like you're doing challenging or extreme things. You just have to be consistent, which is,
Right.
I think, the hardest part for a lot of people.
I've seen posts on your social media of people who have gone through your program or worked with you, and they all say that same thing, that I had to be consistent and it takes time, but it's totally worth it. Every single person says, but it's totally worth it. So clearly it makes a huge difference. You just have to stick with it.
Yeah. Yeah. And like I said, it's not great. Like nothing we're doing is crazy or extreme. It might be a little weird. Like we might ask you to gargle or something, or hum happy birthday before you eat your meal to help like get your gut moving or get your stomach acid working. But it's nothing, like we're not having you stand on your head or anything like that, or cut out like a million different foods, which is typically the approach that a lot of our clients have tried in the past. It's just one, figuring out what the underlying causes are. Stress and anxiety can definitely be one of them, and definitely implementing things day to day to help support that. But then also kind of from the bottom up, supporting it too. When your gut is in a better state, your anxiety can be in a better state as well. So you can't really address one without the other, in my opinion, at least.
The German girl in me secretly wanted you to be like, just eat sauerkraut every day and you're fine. And I would have been like, on it. I can do that. That is something I can be consistent with.
Hey, it's not going to hurt. So if you want to eat sauerkraut every day, more power to you. I love sauerkraut as well. So yeah, add it. A forkful a day is like all you need. So do it.
That's like one of the fermented foods or something, right? Is that right?
Yeah.
That's good for your gut. All right. I'll get a jar tomorrow.
Beet kvass, all that. Very good for you. Very good for your gut.
I don't even know what beet kvass is, but I will learn.
Do you know what kimchi is?
Yes, I know what
Okay,
kimchi is.
kimchi, yeah, all that. Those are like the fermented foods are kind of in their own like category of, they don't necessarily contain probiotics like yogurt or kefir or like, something cultured like that. But the fermentation does help with nutrient absorption and it can help with gut health. But we don't know exactly like, okay, this amount of sauerkraut has X amount of probiotics, where like in yogurt, you can say like this yogurt is cultured with bifidobacteria or lactobacillus or whatever, but consuming both fermented and probiotic rich foods can be helpful if you can tolerate them. A lot of people can't. So working your way that direction is helpful.
Baby steps. Baby steps.
Which with anxiety is so hard because again, you want everything done yesterday so you don't have to sit with those feelings of anxiety.
Yeah.
Right. So true. When I was looking at some research about anxiety, there was a Harvard Medicine article that said, and I'll read it so I get it right. Many people with functional GI disorders perceive pain more acutely than other people do because their brains are more responsive to pain signals from the GI tract. Stress can make the existing pain seem even worse. That was shocking to me. I didn't realize that it's, I mean, I have my own issues. I have a daughter who has significant GI issues, and I noticed that in her. Like when she says her stomach hurts, it freaking hurts. It's not just this little pain. So I was wondering if you would comment on that a little bit, Dr. Finley, and tell me about your thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, there's a reason that your gut is called your second brain. You have a lot of your neurotransmitter production is in your gut. Serotonin being one of the primary ones, which is your calming, happy neurotransmitter. So
anti-anxiety medicine.
Yeah, if we're thinking about anxiety, like, okay, if there's something going on in your gut and you're not producing serotonin, then of course you're anxious, which is why oftentimes with functional gut disorders, anxiety medication is actually prescribed as a treatment because of the gut-brain connection. So being on anxiety medication actually is very common, typically not as like a long-term solution, but kind of to manage the symptoms in the short term. But yes, you have lots of pain receptors in your gut that can affect your perception of pain and even just your body's response to pain, showing like how really what's going on in your gut affects more than just your gut. It affects everything else in your body, which can make it really hard, especially if you are someone that struggles with both gut issues and mood, anxiety, etc. You have all these symptoms going on, and it's kind of this Charlotte's Web of like, where do we even start? Or like, what came from what chicken or egg scenario?
Right. So that's a big part of what you do, I would imagine, is deconstructing that and as I said, getting to the root cause.
Yeah, which, for most people, it kind of boils down to 4 or 5 different things. Like the top, obviously there's this many root causes. I know people listening to a podcast can't see what I just did, but like hundreds of things that could be affecting the gut. But, the main ones that we see, stress, but of all forms. So not just like stress because I'm in a stressful relationship or past trauma, but also stress like from under eating, over exercising, lack of sleep, nutrient deficiencies, blood sugar imbalance, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Like I could add 15 subtabs underneath that. Yeah. Gut motility. So slow motility is going to slow your gut down, meaning things have time to sit there, ferment, overgrow, produce different gases that we don't want, leading to lots of this bloating, discomfort, et cetera, that people experience, which then can affect gut bacterial balance. So too many bad guys, too little good guys. We know that there are specific probiotics that actually do affect the brain. They're called psychobiotics. So if you have slow gut motility, you have lots of bacterial overgrowth, you could have lack of the good guys that are also helping with mood. Stomach acid is definitely something that we see on more the low side than the high side. And so if you're kind of looking at all of those things, you have a lot that you can already work on and investigate. And as you can see, they all affect each other. Usually when someone has gut issues, when, they're coming to us for help, it's not because of one thing. It's because of all these things have snowballed, kind of affecting everything.
I would imagine that feels overwhelming. I feel overwhelmed thinking about it, trying to, if I were a client coming to you, I think the first thing you'd see is, oh yeah, you're anxious and overwhelmed, which is going to, affect your gut. And so, just knowing that it's a daunting task, a bit of a daunting task, it's doable. But I think for those of us who struggle with anxiety, it'd be hard to call you and walk through your door the first time. You know what I'm saying? I love you, so I would totally come through the door. But for someone who's new to this and trying to jump into the process of making things better and has some anxiety that's nagging at the back of their brain, that would be really challenging, I would imagine, to get started. But also, many of us who are anxious are really like type A. We want to get stuff done. Like, give me an assignment. So I would imagine those clients probably do okay.
Yeah. And I think like at the end of the day, like what people want to know is like, one, I'm not alone. There are thousands, hundreds of millions of people that feel the way that I do. And so I know that I'm supported. I know that I'm not the only one who feels this way. And to have it broken down a lot more simply of like, okay, yes, there are 4 million things that you can do to improve your gut health, but you just need to focus on this. Because I think, the internet is wonderful for a lot of reasons, but if you're Googling like, how do I fix my constipation, or how do I fix my abdominal spasms, or whatever it is, you're going to get so many different things. And just because you can do that doesn't mean that you need to. So if you have it broken down a lot more simply of like, okay, here are the main priorities and here's what you need to do, it can feel a lot less overwhelming. But yeah, it's very hard to decide to even embark on this, because I think especially when you struggle with anxiety, like you said, like you want to do it perfectly and you want to like execute according to the plan. And as you know, it's never that way.
Have you read my diary?
Yeah. So, but knowing that you're not alone, I think is helpful in that, like, kind of like me, like I had no idea that there were other people that felt the way that I did until I realized like, oh, wow, a lot of people feel really stuck in these symptoms too.
That's it for part 1 of our conversation with our special guest, Dr. Heather Finley. To connect with Dr. Finley, you can follow her on Instagram at Dr. Heather Finley or visit her website at drheatherfinley.co. You can also connect with us on Instagram at #anxietypodcast. Make sure to tune in next week for the second half of this incredible conversation with Dr. Finley.